One Piece chapter 1023 is out, and it's a chapter full of action and reveals. Now for this chapter and the two upcoming chapters, I believe we're going to get a different kind of color spread. It's going to be the entirety of the top 50 of the popularity poll. So if you don't see one of those characters here, they're probably going to end up on one of the other two. And also I'd like to point out that my boy the Goat Kuma is on the first one. Although I think any of the Shichibukai who made it to popularity poll are on the first one. But I'm gonna take it. For the cover story, we have Vivi hanging out in the trees with some birds while Crew gets jealous down below. Now, normally I'm happy to see Vivi just living her life, but since Reverie and something crazy happened with Alabasta, I feel like all these happy spots of Vivi are just kind of red herrings, because something tragic definitely happened, whether it's Cobra dying, whether it's her being captured, whatever happened. We still don't know about that, and this just reminds me that there's some awful tragedy that's around her happening. We jump back with Zoro and Sanji back and ready for the action. King and Queen are still down their backs from being attacked, and everyone's just looking forward to these two. This is basically another moment where the fight is pretty much destined, and anyone outside of that fight is going to be stepping back. So we're not going to see any gifters, we're not going to see any like headliners or any of the beast pirates jumping in. We're not going to see any of the samurai alliance jumping in, and Hyogoro even tells them to stay back because it's not their fight anymore. We get an interesting tidbit from Marco, who mentioned the rumors about King and his species some time ago, but it turns out he got this from Whitebeard, and Whitebeard was talking about people who lived above the red line, and this is before Mary Joy was up there. Now Whitebeard says this was in the distant past, back when God's land was up there. And now what does that mean? Because I don't necessarily think that King is a god, but what qualifies as a god, and what were they doing up there? Where did they go? Did the Celestial Dragons and whoever they were with pretty much take out that race and take over their land? Because that seems like something they would do. Izo kind of comes in and snatches Marco out of the battlefield because he's basically just thinking in the middle of it while people are attacking him. And while I don't think it would do too much because I think they're just guns, it's still cool to see, and it's funny to see Marco kind of just being carried in an arm while he's thinking, you know, kind of nonchalantly. And based on Izo's response to Marco asking him about God, it seems like Whitebeard mentioned this not only to Marco, but just it was a story he had when he was drunk. So something that reoccurred and something that Whitebeard either must know about or must have heard from someone else. Queen is going on boasting about why the Calamities are the top of the top. Basically, they're amazingly tough and it's going to be hard to put them down. Now, while I don't disagree with that, we've already seen Jack go down once, and I won't be too surprised when these two go down. I do want to see, however, how long it takes for them to go down, like how many chapters or how many attacks they can handle before they are down for the count. And then the attacks begin. We have Queen and we have King coming in, and we get something strange from Sanji because he says that his body's feeling a bit different since he put on the raid suit. Now, one initially thinks that this is wear and strain on his body because he's not used to it. But when you think about it, and when you read further in the chapter with Queen's dialogue, it makes you think that, is it possible that the raid suit is bringing something out of Sanji that he didn't know was there? Is there something latent within Sanji that he can summon now because he's using the raid suit? King goes to attack Sanji and Zoro blocks it, and then Queen goes to attack Zoro and Sanji blocks it. Which, for one, goes to show the kind of teamwork between Zoro and Sanji that we always see. You know, even though they hate each other, they always have each other's back. And I think it also shows to position the matchups perfectly, because it's like, no, Zoro's opponent is King, Sanji's opponent is Queen. That's how it's going to be. Now, when Sanji clashes with Queen again and he's using Gabble Jambe, Queen makes a comment that, oh yeah, all of Jojo's kids are enhanced, so that must be what you're like. And Sanji initially talks about how he's just a human, but we get the reveal from Queen that there's something called a Lunarian that can just create fire. Now, we also get a glance from King, who I assume is a Lunarian. Just based off the reaction and what we get from this portion of the chapter, it seems like there may be something more to Sanji than just being a human. Now, how could he end up being a Lunarian if they were a distant race? You know, was Sora related to them somehow? It opens up a lot of questions about Sanji's lineage now. Queen also mentions that his enhancements are so great that Vegapunk can't match them. I don't believe that for a second. It's Vegapunk. From what I've seen him create and be able to do, there's no way that Queen's enhancements, especially if we've seen a lot of them so far, are anywhere near level of Vegapunk's. In clashing with Zoro, we see that King has yet another Karakuri blade, and if you guys remember, that's one of the mechanized blades that has basically the moving parts within it. So we saw this with Sasuke and we saw this with Hold'em. They're just kind of blades that are more function over being a general blade. And even with the dialogue as well, we get the idea that King is not a true swordsman. This is something that was kind of up for debate when we first saw King, because we knew he had a sword and we figured he'd be Zoro's fight, but we kind of had questions about if he was an actual swordsman. Either way, Zoro says he's taking King down, so we know that Zoro is getting ready to unleash everything he's got. We even see him put Haki on all his blades, so it's about to get really intense. As Hyogoro and Kawamatsu watch Zoro fight, they both make comments on how very similar Zoro is to the members of Shimotsuki, to the former daimyo, to Ryuma, the one-eyed samurai. And they keep saying that his sword handling, the way he looks, the way he acts, everything he's doing reminds them so much of the people of that namesake. And I think this is an obvious nod to say that Zoro is a Shimotsuki. Like, whether he is just a descendant, whether he has some kind of Shimotsuki blood in him, he is of their namesake. And this is even more so enforced by the fact that we're getting the Sanji stuff beforehand. We're getting the Sanji family, the Sanji having a possible different lineage beforehand. And then we jump to Zoro, who also has a special lineage. So I think this is going to show that these two are special in more ways than just them being the Wings of the Pirate King, more ways than them just being, a team, the top of the top. Now, since we see King and Queen fighting, we also pan over to Jack in his fight with Inurashi. Honestly, at this point, I was expecting Inurashi to be down by now, but going with Jack for so long, but he's still pushing up, and we even get the return of Sulong from this fight, so I think Inurashi might end up pulling out a win here. And I know that it took both of them, Inurashi and Nekomamushi, to put Jack down last time, but we do have to remember that Jack is pretty injured here, and as far as the healing goes, I would say that he's more injured than Inurashi was. And if Inurashi gets a huge boost from Sulong form, then I think this definitely puts him above Jack at this point. And in that same vein, we have Nekomamushi outside, who has gone into Sulong form, as I guessed would happen with Perospero. Now, when you look at these two fights, you have Inurashi versus Jack, and you have Nekomamushi versus Perospero. I initially don't think that the Nekomamushi versus Perospero fight is going to be long or hard fought, because I think Nekomamushi is way above Perospero. I just think with the ability for close combat and the fact that we see Carrot and Wanda still here means that Perospero might just get jumped at this point. While Jack and Inurashi, that's a much bigger fight. Those are two heavy hitters going head to head. So what I might expect is that once Nekomamushi is done with Perospero, he's going to join Inurashi, and they're both going to fight Jack again. That would make it, I would imagine, a more even trade, just in case Jack does have that, ancient Zoan stamina boost that regens him really fast. Raizo and Fukurokuju are still going at it. Doesn't seem like anyone's getting the upper hand again, but they have some pretty interesting dialogue that directly relates to the next part of the chapter, and probably the biggest part of the chapter. And they're talking about how everyone takes time to mature, and eventually everyone becomes a samurai. And speaking of which, we have the introduction of adult Momo. Shinobu did in fact use her power to mature Momo to 28 years old. Now, first off, the panel of Momo in his dragon form is amazing. It looks very reminiscent to Kaido's, but it's got a different kind of flair to it. But it's basically the same form. I imagine the coloring of it is what's going to make it pop in a different way, because we have Kaido and the blue dragon, so we're going to have Momo being the pink dragon. And while the other heart pirates are terrified, obviously Luffy knows it's Momo, and they're pretty much ready to go back to Wano. Now, my question is here, what is Momo going to do after he takes Luffy back? I discussed it in a few of the last chapter reviews about basically his options, but what I see here in this chapter is that it doesn't seem like it took a whole lot for him to grasp being older, because he's in his dragon form. He doesn't seem to be, struggling at all, and to be fair, we haven't seen him try anything yet, but he seems very comfortable in this form. So if he somehow gained skill with maturity, we might see him be even more useful in the fight than just holding up Onigashima. An absolutely fantastic chapter. I think the next few ones are going to be really hype, because we've kind of cleared through some of the more tedious stuff. We got through the Tuberopo fights. There isn't a whole lot left for like the fodder to do. So we're seeing Zoro, we're seeing Sanji, we're gonna see Luffy, we're gonna see Yamato. We're gonna see those fights happening now. And those are the big ones, and those are the ones that really matter. As always, there will be a poll in the description below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me how you felt about the chapter, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.